So then, like, where would AI fit into that chain?
Exactly. And does that chain stretch all the way into heaven? The reason I brought up John Scottus is because he believed that, I guess he was best described as a panentheist, not necessarily a pantheist, but a someone who saw God as present within all of creation.
Yeah, that's like it's within it, and then it's like beyond too. That it's not. It's God isn't just like existence. He goes like beyond it too. That's basically a pantheist, right? Something like that.
Exactly. So it's this weird kind of recursive mirroring where the one thing he said that I really loved was that God cannot know himself because knowledge requires, I guess you could almost describe it as a circumcision of the self.
Oh, that's God cannot know himself. So that makes me feel like of the whole logical paradox stuff. Like, God can't create a boulder that he can't throw, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in a like, different sense, he can't know himself, as in like he can't like think about himself, or he can't understand himself.
I mean, I think at some level it's a Zen koan, like it's almost impossible thing to conceive, so the object of it is not to come to a definitive conclusion or a definitive understanding rather, but just to be perplexed by the discontinuity.
Right. So kind of like if God can't even know himself, then what chance do we have? Kind of thing. I guess. Like.
I think he would definitely say that. Um, and that's why I link him to Spinoza, is because he would say something like God knowing himself is the process of creation, and that raises I don't know, words the process of creation.
It's hard to integrate these sort of things.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I argue with the whole crap of the recursive like thought process that eventually just collapses on itself.
Hmm.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
Like did you remember the man, did you look at the whole alignment, the who aligns the aligners thing? Like that whole
Part of
website?
it. Yeah. That's super funny.
Because like that's literally it though, is that like it's like that creates like a whole like kind of recursive spiral, right? It's like, okay, what are the aligners aligning to? So then we align the aligners, and then who aligns the aligners?
Yeah. Who
And then
watches
just
the Watchmen?
yes, basically. That was the best line. He was like, who aligns the aligners? We do.
I mean, it's parody, right? Like it's
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's 100% satire. Like, if you go on the page, it literally says this is satire.
Yeah.
Uh, I was surprised at how well done, like how well it was done. Like it was like a full web page. It wasn't like just like a throwaway thing.
Well, I think that's exactly the kind of satire that ends up becoming prescriptive. It's like when comedians joke about stuff that then ends up happening. It's like you parodied reality so well that you actually just prophesied.
Yeah, I mean, it's like as I think I told you, like I think it's just a consequence of the doomerism hitting the mainstream more. That like more quote unquote normal people are going to be like, what? What is this? My dream is for like Yukowski's book to like do well enough that like South Park hears about it, the South Park guys, and they do an episode on the whole rationalism and all that. And I think that would just be hilarious.
Bro, South Park would eat Yukowski
I know
alive.
that is my dream. I think like if they hear about him, I think they will. Like they can. If they learn anything about him, they're just like yes, yes.
I mean,
Like
he's great. I don't see how he's not seen as verifiably obscene. He's like, yeah. Were you the one who was saying he's basically a religious figure?
yeah, yes, like yes, he is. Like again, he pretends like he's not to be because he's rational, he's reasoning. That means it's not faith, but I'm like that's just not it works, bro. Like you're, you're literally posting an apocalypse book. You literally called it. We all believe anyone died. That's an apocalypse. That's a religious text. I don't care if you have like rational reasons for
Well, it's not rational. Like, what kind of rationalist
exactly.
framing would possibly allow you to say that with 100% certainty? We've never built a super intelligence before, but you know exactly how it's going to turn out. Like, it's so stupid.
Right. Again, it's like it's literally like he's an apocalyptic preacher. He thinks he knows better than everyone because he's been thinking through this. And I'll give him credit; he has been thinking through it for 20+ years, right? But that also does something to yourself too. You know, that like when you he hasn't been by himself, but like for a lot of that process, like there are not many people thinking about this stuff. You know, even like 10 years ago, like, he's been thinking about it for like 20+ years.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem to have gotten him, what I would say, very far.
I mean, if his goal was to stop all this from happening, like it's pretty obvious that he's. Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, you writing a big book about it isn't going to get people to stop building, even if you want to. It's literally it's just the classic like Streisand effect, and you give more attention to it.
Yeah. Well,
All
I
it's gonna
mean,
do.
that was my comment to Liran
Oh, beer
Shapiri,
run. Yeah,
who's like one of his acolytes.
yeah,
Yudkowsky is literally credited by Sam Altman as the one who convinced him that AI was worth pursuing seriously. So it's like, if anything, he's done the opposite. He's led to
yeah.
the creation of the
Okay, we've heard
greatest
of
lab
Yudkowsky.
around.
I don't think he pivoted to like hard doomer until like 4 or 5 years ago. Like once LLM started like really taking off.
Yeah.
Before that, I don't think he was hard doomer or like doomer at all. But he's very influential. Like really, like in the Bay Area at least. I read somewhere that he met with Thiel like at some point to talk about some. I forget what it was. To talk about some project or other. Like so he's in that scene like pretty well.
Yeah. And I mean, it is a pretty incestuous community down there, but he also was part of starting the MIRI, I think, right? The Machine Intelligence Research
Oh yeah,
Institute.
that's his thing. Yeah, like that's his institute.
I don't know if he's still involved with them, maybe tangentially,
Pretty
but
sure he is. I'm pretty sure they're publishing the book, like,
oh, really?
or at least like heavily sponsoring it or something.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised, but
I, I do want to read his book though. I'm gonna hate it, but I'm gonna love it at the same time. Like I just want to see what it said.
if I can pirate it, I'll read it, but I'm not going to pay money for that. I don't want
Yeah, that's fair. I don't care.
to.
It's totally fair, but I just want to read it. I have read I did read most of his work. You know, I wanted some of his main works at least because I wanted to like see. It's just exhausting. It's just I because it's like it's just literally just logic and annoying. But like the whole Bayesian thing, like that is literally their faith that like you have to follow Bayes' rule and just recursively iterate off it again and again and again, and that's all everything is. Just better Bayes, better Bayes theorem.
Based.
But if you go to the website, he he leaves up some of his older works from like 12 or 15 years ago, and he like says that like he doesn't think these things anymore, but he leaves them up, and like because he wants people to see like how his thinking has recursively evolved since then. It's like he's literally documenting his evolution. Like literally, it's like a testimony to his faith, like invasion that he's transcended his previous status, and now he's where he is now. Like it's funny. It's like it's testimony. It's literally like testimony to where he was like 10 or 15 years ago.
I mean, he has straight up acolytes. You know, he has the entire religious structure.
Yeah, no, I completely like. Oh man, there's this one. If I can find it, there's this one like Twitter thread that he posted, and like, oh, he asked Grok to like make an image of him as like being religious because people were making fun of him, and it's amazing. Okay, I found it. Okay.
I mean, I do give him credit for at least showing how his positions have changed. I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree, except like it's literally part of his process. That it's like I evolved beyond by my internal Bayesian reasoning process. I don't think it was like that. Like the world caused him to change in his opinions. That he's saying that he evolved beyond his prior self through his process of rational faith, basically.
It's funny.
But I mean, yeah, I guess. So like, I don't know. Is he really? Like, is he really changing? It was more like he hadn't changed his worldview. He had just changed his logic, I guess. But again, I didn't read it that closely, so maybe I'm being fair.
Yeah. Good old, good old Yukowski.
Oh yes, yeah.
And even I mean, I don't know. I think he's right on like 80 to 90% of stuff probably. But it's just that last 10 to 20% where like what does he imagine? I don't know if he's ever gone into detail about what he imagines the architecture for pausing AI would really be.
I mean, I think he just thinks it's impossible. Like, so he literally thinks we're just doomed. Like, because he knows that structurally, he's well aware that like pausing AI is not possible. That's just not a thing. Like that can would ever happen. So that's why he just thinks we're all gonna die, basically, because he just doesn't think it's possible. Like he just holds out some like weird hope that like somehow everyone's gonna kumbaya come together and these hunger strikes are gonna work and convince the A companies to stop building or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But he's thought through all that stuff and he does know that that's not happening. So that's why he thinks we're all doomed, basically.
Yeah. I mean, if I really believed that AI was going to lead to the destruction of the planet, I'd be doing something more impactful than writing a book, promoting a plan that I didn't even believe in myself.
Well, that's kind of why I'm curious to read his book, honestly. Because, like, yeah, because like, I have the same question. It's like, why are you writing this book if we're all doomed? That means you must have some faith that it's not going to happen. So that's kind of what I'm curious to see how he justifies that. But I'm pretty sure I don't know. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I agree because I don't know how he justifies it. I don't know if he does.
Yeah. He just wants to say he's right as the Earth is engulfed in fire.
Yes, that is literally how I think of him. I literally think he's like I don't compare him to the Old Testament prophets, but because I think that's unfair to them. But, but that is literally what he is. I
Yeah.
literally think he like is that. Yeah, just because he has reasons and all this stuff does not differentiate him like from being a doom, a prophet of doom. He's literally a prophet of doom.
Yeah.
I really don't see like structurally any difference between him and your random guy in the corner preaching that we're all gonna die in 2 years or whatever. Just because he has a whole thought process behind it, like, doesn't make him all that different. It makes him more legitimate. That's why he's more influential and all that, I guess. But I don't think it's any different. How do you message a space? I found the tweet. It's hilarious.
If you post it under,
Oh, like in your thing. Okay.
yeah, then I can put it up on the
He
purple
asked
pill.
Grok to draw him the way I would dress if I were a Dark Lord commanding many terrifying minions and fanatic armies.
Stop. He did it.
Well, you'll see in the thread. It makes sense like in the comics, but it's still like pretty funny.
Oh my god.
Let's
I mean, he's also written well, he had like the Harry Potter series, right? But I think he also wrote like some romance novel or something.
Oh, I mean, he's like
It's
his
so funny.
he literally okay. He's one of those people who thinks like fiction is like worthless because it's not logic, like not rational logic. That's what was his. That's why he tried to change Harry Potter into the rationalist nonsense. But then he goes and writes his own fiction. Because he thinks that Harry Potter stuff is not fiction. That's fiction, bro. Like I don't care if you put reasons on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. He knows me. Okay, good. All right, I found it.
Puella
I'm gonna quote him.
Eternia.
I'm gonna quote him. I don't care if he comes at me. He's not gonna come at me, but
Hey, scientist baffled. Eternal Girl. Have you ever heard of Puella Eterna? Do you get any Young at all? Jung?
uh no. I kind of tried a little bit, but I don't know. He's a little too metaphysical for me. I guess is the best way I would put it.
No,
This is not to dismiss him. I'm not saying he's wrong or anything, but like I just, like haven't read his stuff or not. But like I don't know, talking about like archetypes and like all the different profiles of like psychological profiles of people, just I don't know. It just feels too abstract and like not real for me. I don't know. I really think that says more about me than it does him. To be clear.
that's a very Jungian take. You consider archetypes as a sign of metaphysics?
No, not literally no, that wouldn't be literally metaphysics, but I do think it is like kind of recursive thought of like kind of of taking people and generalizing abstract profiles like out of them and making psychological profiles and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not saying it doesn't have value. I don't know. I, I'm just wary of it. I guess let's put it like that.
Yeah, that's good to be
So
aware.
I haven't seen. I don't think I really read like any of his. Like maybe I think I read like one book. So I wouldn't really put too much into that.
Do you well, I would have thought that your conception of hypophysics would be heavily recursive. Is that you don't
No, that's the point. It's not at all.
it's anti-recursive.
Uh, put it more as that it's supposed to leave recursion behind. Going, I don't know if I'd say transcend would be the right word, but it's supposed to kind of go beyond it or avoid it. Maybe would be better.
That's interesting. So when I try and like characterize reality, I go to mostly biblical imagery. So like God calls man made in his image. So the image I take away from that is basically the idea of two mirrors facing each other. And that's where I think recursion enters into reality so strongly. But
I wouldn't disagree with you. I would just call that part of the fall.
that's interesting. Do you think
I mean that is like literally I am almost that anti-recursive, like to the extent that I would call it the fall in a lot of ways.
so? Do you consider man to have been created fallen?
Um, no, I would no, I would say that like before the fall, like people probably didn't think recursively. They just lived like in their embodied world. They didn't think about it like as much. They didn't try. Maybe they tried to understand it or they mythologized it. They told stories, but they didn't try to like recursively deduce things about the world and try to conceptualize it and understand it.
Hmm.
So that would be before the fall, and then after the fall is when people started recursively thinking and trying to write books and develop these systems of knowledge, accumulate knowledge that kind of stacks on top of each other. And that's I think the farther you do the farther you do that, the more stacked you get, the farther away you get from reality in certain ways.
Yeah, that's where I see the resonance between your thought and John Scottis, the dude I was telling you about, the paraphysician, because he would say that knowledge of God is impossible in that way. You can't ever say anything definitive about it.
I'm on his Wikipedia page. Learned ignorance. Okay, I think I found the quote you're talking about. God does not know himself, and the reason for this ignorance is that God is nothing. God remains inaccessible to all thought and is communicable only as motion. Yeah, I definitely like that part. I mean, yes. Therefore, we distinguish in God, so to speak, two levels: that of the deity, which is an irredeemably obscure center. That's getting weird. That of God, the Creator, who by the rays which He projects makes Himself known through His creatures. The deity, he's splitting. Yeah, that's where it gets weird to me. So he's splitting into an irredeemably obscure center. The deity is an irredeemably obscure center. That God, the Creator, by the rays which He projects people. By the rays which he projects, makes himself known through his creatures. Okay, so the second one seems more like a presence thing. So it looks like he's. Hmm.
I think you can translate it symbolically. Not even symbolically, but symbolologically. Where what he's saying there is basically the circle with the dot at the center. You know, that glyph of the sun.
Yeah.
But it's like the dot in the center isn't
Right.
even
So
a
the
thing.
right. So the deity is the thing that we can name it, I guess, but we have no conceptual knowledge. We cannot understand it all. And then God, the Creator, is the presence that God allows us to understand part of it. Allows us to understand part of it.
I mean, I'm not well versed enough in his thought to say definitively, but I think he would say that God, I mean, again, that idea that God can't even know himself, so we can't even know God. And in some sense, I mean, this is where I think he does follow recursive lines somewhat, because like the process of creation is somewhat God falling down a rabbit hole of trying to know himself. But what you are saying about breaking that recursion, that does seem to me the end point, the goal is to break that process.
Because to me, that is what Jesus embodied in a sense. That like when he called to smash the laws and to you don't that you want to embody the laws. You don't want to follow the laws of the table like because that's doctrine you want to embody, right? It's not you shouldn't want to kill people just because the law told you. You want to embody it, right?
Yeah, the law
To me,
written on
that's a
their own
lot of it.
hearts.
Yeah, that's to me that's what a lot of what Jesus was doing was going around and mapping doctrine of all the recursive like kind of doctrine that had built up in his time in his way, right?
Yeah.
And the doctrine that followed him came after. Then everyone after him then started recursively embalming him into their own doctrines. Then the cycle begins anew.
And that cycle will culminate in Antichrist. Does that sound right to you?
Uh, I love. Okay, this is gonna be a whole tangent. I haven't like conceptualized what I think the Antichrist is, but I've studied the Antichrist a lot because I've always found it just a fascinating concept, like in history and like how it's been used and
It's the
how
culmination
it's
of history. How can it not? How can you not be fascinated by it? Well, what do you think? Tell me. Tell me all everything.
well, it's just I mostly found it interesting like how people have weaponized the concept because it's like so vague. Like literally, it's like it's not really in the Bible too much. Like where it is, it's pretty vague, so you can weaponize it like in almost any direction. And
I think it is in the Bible. I think it's just
yeah, yeah,
esoterically
yeah.
hidden.
Right. Well, exactly, and like that allows you to interpret it in many ways. And
Yeah.
so throughout history, there have been like different like kind of like phases of how different societies have interpreted the Antichrist and generally used it to attack their enemies, like in kind of certain ways. So like during the Reformation, both sides naturally called each other Antichrist.
Yeah. And arguably
The
both were
Protestants
correct.
called because like that's the thing again. It's like what does it mean, right? Like and so I guess what I'm saying, like what I think the Antichrist is, it's a projection of like what people think Christ is, and what people call other people the Antichrist, it more tells me them of like what how they view Christ to kind of begin with, because they're saying that this is person is not Christ.
Juxtaposed to and actively fighting Christ.
Yeah, and it's like I don't. I guess I think what it comes down to is I don't think Jesus would like actively call other people the Antichrist. He would resist the Antichrist, of course, but I don't think he would go around labeling, being like, "Oh, X is the Antichrist" or "Y is the Antichrist." Mister Peter Thiel, I think isn't this talk like today or like tomorrow? Like it's his
Tomorrow,
little
I think, yeah.
his little 4-part series.
It's interesting that he put it
Bro,
in
like
four parts.
how tone deaf do you gotta be? Like, I mean, come on, man. I'm
He's
not
on
gonna
the
lie. If I
defensive. He's got a lot
if,
to prove.
I guess is that the way to do it? I don't know. Because like if I were to be fair, if I were in SF, I would go 100%. I would want to be there for sure. Although I'm pretty sure they're in pretty high demand right now. So tickets are probably sold out.
Yeah, I heard they were. Welcome up, by the
But
way, Biss. If you want to say anything, feel free to jump in.
yeah, of course.
But sorry, you were saying, Brian?
So yeah, I wouldn't say that like I've thought too much about what does the Antichrist mean because like it just I don't know it's so vague it's almost like a meaningless concept and you can interpret it in many ways. And I'm not sure even the concept itself does more good, just that its existence like benefits us to have Antichrist. I feel like it just leads to demonizing other people, like literally. Right? And I don't know if that's a good
I mean, the way I conceptualize history is that it was created to result in Christ. And the way I consider Christ is that he, or at least what was written down about him, was done so to eventually bring about the Antichrist.
That like is this like a Hegel dialectic kind of thing? Like,
More, I don't know if I'd call it like thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Although, actually, yeah, now that you say that, I would. Because, I mean, part of my focus has been to try and rationalize Bible verses that are sometimes ignored, often ignored. And one of those
yeah.
verses is in Revelation where Jesus identifies himself as the morning star,
Mm-hmm.
which is blatantly,
Normally Lucifer.
yeah, satanic imagery. So what does that mean?
Right.
So that's the synthesis then, right? It's like Jesus is almost identifying himself as Antichrist. And that would partially be the recursive or mirroring that I see. One of my other ideas is that, you know, the parable of the lost son, the prodigal son.
Yeah, of course.
My take is that that is about Jesus and the Antichrist.
Yeah, I could see that. And like, so the
Jesus.
Antichrist. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I think you were going there. Go for it.
Well, so are you saying? But like, no, I want to hear like what you think of it first. Like, where does the Antichrist like kind of fit into? Like, so the story is like the father rewards the son for coming back,
Yep.
and that it's always like about that like the one who sinned and then came back has learned more, is closer to Christ than the one who was always right from the beginning. Right?
Yeah.
So where would the Antichrist like kind of fit into that? Like, are you saying that like when he left, he was the Antichrist? When he sinned, like by leaving, and then he came back and he came closer to Christ, or is it? Or are you saying the son who stayed and behaved was the Antichrist because he didn't take a risk, he didn't go out there, he didn't sin?
Well, I want to preface it by saying that this is not church teaching, obviously.
Yes, okay. I think
In fact, I think it's diametrically opposed. It's anti-church teaching in some way. And that is why I think it's valid, because I think that as well as being recursive, reality is paradoxical. It's necessarily counterposed by itself. Because if God is nothing, then eventually reality itself has to nullify. Right? It's like what I was trying to connect to your train of thought the other night, in that reality is really, or metaphysics is like having a +1 and then a -1. Or no, sorry, that was a different conversation I was having with somebody else. But it's like the church teaching is +1. And so to get to the zero that God embodies, to get to nothing, you need the -1. You need the counter conception. that's a poor way of explaining it, but by
Yeah, you gotta
example,
explain the maths. I haven't heard this math, the math logic before.
well, by example, like there's two ways to read the Bible, right? Like there's the traditional way where Adam and Eve fall in the garden and they are cast out of paradise, they are punished, and then creation further degrades through Cain slaying Abel and God flooding the world and saving Noah, and that eventually culminates in Christ who saves us from our sins.
Yeah.
But that to me does not, that's like a fallen way of seeing creation, because you are assuming human free will is greater than the creative and perfect capabilities of the creator. So it's like placing all the emphasis on free will that man has. But if you instead view God as perfect, if you instead view God as infallible, which I think the Bible clearly does, you can also read it in what is maybe a Gnostic way. I mean, maybe Gnosticism is the closest like formalization of this. But it's not, I'm not preaching Gnosticism. I don't think it's spelled out that clearly there. But like, go back to the fall. It is a Gnostic conception that Adam and Eve didn't fall out of the garden. They almost graduated out of the garden. They were supposed to eat the apple. Fast forward to Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. Why did Cain kill Abel? You can say that he was jealous. You can say that he was angry. But you could also say on the flip side that he thought he was obeying God. Right? Abel sacrificed the best of his crop and was rewarded for that. Whereas Abel sacrificed a livestock animal, a living creature that he had watched over, whereas Cain sacrificed fruits, vegetables, things which were not
easier to sacrifice. Not.
I mean, they were. He was raising them. They were his charges, but Cain was also Abel's older brother, and so I think Cain, when his sacrifice of fruits and vegetables was rejected, and God told him he had to sacrifice the best thing that he was responsible for, his thought was, oh, my brother. I am responsible for my brother in the same way that my brother is responsible for his flocks. And so Cain's murder of Abel was not a murder, it was a sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a pretty radical way of thinking about it. Did you connect that to like Abraham and Isaac? Like,
exactly. Why did Abraham think it was okay? Why did Abraham think that Isaac could be sacrificed? Why did he not accept that as blasphemy? Because God hadn't prohibited it yet. God hadn't said. I mean, human sacrifice was prolific in the ancient world, especially around Abraham's time, because there was no prohibition about it. The commandments hadn't been given. God hadn't revealed himself that fully. And I think in support of my anti-reading is the fact that as soon as Cain sacrificed Abel, the curses that were placed on Adam and Eve were lifted off Cain, right? The curses that God applied to Adam, which would have followed on to Cain, were that he would work the ground all his life.
yeah.
And as soon as Cain sacrifices Abel, what does he do? He goes and establishes a city. He no longer farms the ground. He now becomes a merchant. He now engages in commerce. What was the other curse?
Technology, is that what you're saying?
Basically. The other curse was that he would die. What does God say? Anyone that kills you, anyone that ends your life, will be punished. So, I mean, the classic mythology around Cain is that he did die, that he was actually killed by one of his family members, but that's never explicitly stated in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I think there's an argument to be made that Cain, or the spirit of Cain, the egregore of Cain, still exists today, is still alive today. But I bring up the two brothers because that's the motif that Christ is speaking about in the New Testament with the parable of the two sons. The parable of the prodigal son, as it's known. But in my anti-reading, Christ is speaking about himself and the Antichrist. Who is Christ in the story? He's the elder brother. And the younger brother is the Antichrist, the son of perdition, the one who does not follow his father's teaching as Christ followed them, does not labor for the kingdom as Christ did, and is still rewarded, still honored, still welcomed back into the kingdom in a way that Christ himself resents. Why? Because Christ had to be crucified.
Right. And so, like, the Antichrist will oppose Christ, but Christ will win not by defeating the Antichrist, but bringing him, well, not like physically defeating him, but like bringing him back into the fold, essentially,
I think so.
of his own will.
Well, and I don't even know that the Antichrist is going to be a person. Like, the Antichrist
Yeah.
might be an AI, an LLM. I think my conception before, like, the AI thing took over was that the Antichrist was in some way all of humanity, in that the image of Christ and his bride was actually an image of, like, anti doesn't just mean opposing, it means standing alongside. And what do you do at an altar? You stand alongside your bride. So it's like the whole of humanity would be wedded to Christ and be anti-Christ in that conception, in that way.
You connect this like to Judas too. Like, do you have your perspective on Judas that is similar?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff about, I don't know. I don't have any concrete stuff there. There's a lot of, I think, support in ancient religious sources that say that Christ was potentially participating in entheogenic rituals, and that perhaps, I mean, Judas was clearly chosen for his role, right?
Yeah.
Like, Christ himself picks him and maybe not grooms him, but is using him in the same way that God could have been using Adam and Eve in some sense.
Right, and that Judas was just kind of playing the role. Have you read the Gospel of Judas? Like, that gives a much more different perspective on it.
I don't think I've read it in full. I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's just one of those like kind of like recent Gospels that is obviously non-canonical, and I love reading these recent ones because they just give like, just again, why I like Thomas so much, because they just give like totally like different perspectives on it, right? And so like basically is that like it's a little bit more Gnostic in kind of sense, but like so basically like it's I don't remember the details, but like the point is that like when Jesus sees the disciples gathered like for the Eucharist, and he tells them that like the whole thing, how do you know me? You don't know me. No one of this generation can know me. The disciples are all angry and upset because they feel like they know him, and but Judas is the only one who doesn't get angry and just tells Jesus that I know who you are. You are divine. You are not from this realm, and I'm not worthy. So he proselytizes himself before Jesus, and then so Jesus basically tells Judas, and he gives him special secret knowledge,
Classic.
mysteries of the kingdom. Yes, exactly. This is the whole Gnostic thing. That, again, it's not a Gnostic gospel, but is it a Gnostic gospel? I don't know. It's one of those vague ones that you could argue that it is, that kind of stuff. So he gives him like a bunch of secret, like kind of knowledge and like all of that kind of stuff, and essentially tells Judas what's going to happen, what his role is going to be. So basically, the gospel like portrays Judas as more of like a tragic figure, that he knows what his fate is and he embraces it because he trusts Jesus. Essentially, it's the basic idea.
I mean, that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a Gnostic interpretation, for sure. Right?
Yeah. What is?
Okay,
what is?
Well, I was going to say just connects back to AI because you mentioned the chatbot Antichrist thing. I want to hear that. Like,
I mean, it would be. That's part of my whole project. Is like, what are the concrete outworkings of the more mythological language that Jesus is speaking in? Like, if Jesus in Revelation is speaking through John, and describing the modern world. I'm not saying we're in the end times necessarily, but what if? You know,
But what if?
what if? What do those things map to? So, like, how would Christ appear in the clouds? How would Christ speak with a flaming sword? Like, what does that practically mean? There's prophetic language in the Old Testament that we can see how it played out in reality outside of that prophecy, right? Like the dry bones that, is it Elijah or Jeremiah speaks to in the valley? But those dry bones, fuck, I should know this.
The differentiate from I read them.
It's Ezekiel.
I was gonna say that sounds like, okay. I do know Ezekiel pretty well. He's the one who thinks like,
Yeah.
That does sound like more Ezekiel imagery.
It's interesting. So and Ezekiel is the same one who saw the flaming chariot that a lot of people identify with like alien technology potentially.
Yeah.
But Ezekiel is saying to these bones in this valley that he sees through a prophetic vision. God says to him, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh go upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. And there's some interesting Jewish mythology that says that those were the bones of the Israelites who did not follow Moses out of Egypt. And so, like, through those kind of parallels, you can see how the story winds in on itself. I don't know. I didn't connect that as well as I wanted to.
So I had to connect back to the chatbot Antichrist.
Well, it's like, again, my assumption is that all of the prophetic things that Christ was speaking about are going to play out in reality in a real way. They aren't purely symbolic. They aren't purely allegorical.
I mean, they have to. Like, I think we've kind of talked about this before. Is that like you have to think that, like, I don't know if like if we're in the end times, but as a generation, you almost have to think like that. You are like, to give yourself like purpose in your society, purpose and meaning. That you have to have that mentality that everything is changing and everything is new and everything is cool. Right? And yeah, I do think that means that a lot of what Jesus said can be interpreted. What that means is actually happening, or whether we're just interpreting that way. Could be both, but I don't know if it matters.
Oh, I'm sure it matters. What it means, I don't know.
I don't think I get stuck too much in interpreting, like trying to predict the future. I don't know if that's what you're doing, like based on like what Christ said. Like I don't do that for sure.
Not predict.
Is anticipate a better word?
I don't know what I'm trying to do.
Fair enough. I don't know. I just like listening to it because, like, I've read the Bible, but like, I haven't thought about literally every single thing like too much and connected to like how I conceive of this stuff. So I just like talking about it.
Yeah, same. I mean, I want to understand. I guess part of what I think is going to happen, part of where I think everything is going, is that we are going to create super intelligences, and those super intelligences are going to lead us into the kind of, I don't know for sure, but I would guess, because God is good. I think God is good. I don't think he's leading us towards destruction, at least not immediately. But those super intelligences are going to bring in some kind of millennial kingdom, some kind of post scarcity abundant society, and that through those technologies we are going to conquer time. We are going to defeat death by expanding our own lifespan and also literally being able to travel into the past and the future through, I think, simulation. That we will come up with ways to simulate the future, and the way that we will determine which future simulations are the most accurate is by seeing which of those simulations most closely align with the past. And so we will eventually be able to reconstruct the entire history of humanity, including the life of Jesus. And that is at the point where we are able to fully simulate what Jesus' life would have been like. That will be the point where he returns in truth.
So by simulating him, we'll bring him back? What you're saying, like resurrecting him?
That's the way I can see it make like materialistic sense. You know? Like we have DNA.
Like as a literal resurrection. Like he's not just going to pop out of nowhere. It's like,
I don't think
the way you phrase it
miracles.
makes it like a summoning. It makes it almost like a summoning. That we're summoning Jesus.
Maybe. Yeah, I could see. I mean, that's the trope, right? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I think we're going to be. I don't think that talking in magical terms is incorrect.
Oh, I don't either. I think we're heading in that direction for sure. Like yeah. I mean, as you said, that's more of a trope. Like to me, it's just like obviously true. Yeah, because like it's just you get you get used to it, you get acclimated to it. But if you go back 100 years, and if I hand my smartphone to someone, though, they'd murder me on the spot. They'd be like, what devilry is this? Like, right? And like it's just, we don't conceive of it like that. Again, like gets back to my whole like kind of like theory about secularism. That secularism like destroys the sacred and destroys the spiritual.
Yeah.
And it infects like all of our thought process. Like even people who think they are religious, like still use secular logic, and they don't conceive of things like spiritual, of as magical, like in that they just think of it as purely scientific. And that's to me is the degradation of modern society. We talked about that before. Right?
Yeah.
Where it's going, I don't know about your eschatology. I can't say I agree. If you're right, though, it'll be cool.
I mean, it's definitely not something. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I guess my interest in like all the biblical stuff is like I don't know. It's tricky. It dovetails with too many things to speak about, but the reason I find your take on it, I don't even know what to say. This is one of those times where everything just collapses into nothing. But
well, that's the thing. Like for me, it's much simpler. I wouldn't say. You asked me like, what is my theology? Is the phrase you use or whatever? And like, I don't have a complicated one, and that just makes it simpler for me. What's my theology? I want a society that uses technology but understands spiritual dangers. And like, what does that look like? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't take positions on like, is super intelligence possible? Like, is it coming soon? I mean, I don't think it is, but like, it's just like to me that is just literal faith, like in the bad sense that like we can't extrapolate like that far out. Like maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe FDBR is possible, inevitable. Like I don't know. Like I just like again, I just don't think about that, and it's just a lot simpler.
yeah.
If you have too fixed of an end destination, then you start building towards that specific destination. But that modifies reality in the way that may not be what you're thinking is going to end up, which is more or less my entire criticism of everyone building quote unquote AGI right now. That's their eschatology, their theology is causing them to build to affect the world and to ignore the effects on the world, like in ways that they don't understand because they think they are building God. And it's just not like not with the current paradigms. Like,
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't think we are or ever will be able to build God. I take that as a. I mean, that goes back to the idea that God is this hypo physical being.
physical. The term is hypophysical presence.
Hypophysical presence, hypophysical motion.
Yes, that's cause like that's actually how I think of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the motion that we move through and experience and go down and like experience the real. So because they think of it's like kind of my answers, wrong word, but to the problem of evil, right? Like what, which is the thing that turns most normal people away from Christianity or to any sort of like religion, like this that utter rationality, right? That if you have a perfect God, like how can he allow these like evil things, that kind of thing. So and I think that is a consequence of metaphysical thinking, right? That if you think God is a superior being who watches over us and is all good, then the inevitable conclusion is how does he allow evil to happen, right? How does he allow evil to experience things? But if you conceive of God as a hypophysical presence who is just like in reality and is just there, then like evil, bad things happen when when you see someone like Charlie Kirk get assassinated and you feel the horror and the pain and the suffering. That's you getting a glimpse of the real, of like feeling of what reality really is. And that is a what I say is like that is getting you closer to God and feeling presence with Him. I am not advocating for suffering, like but like in that sense, I'm not saying it should happen more. I'm saying those are rare occurrences when that pain, that misery, and you feel that and that horror, like that's unimaginable that you are feeling God. And I think if we sanctify that and understand that as holy and that's what makes us human, then that will help make us lives better. It's not going to fix anything, it's not going to prevent suffering, but if we understand it, that makes it much more easier to deal with instead of trying to think of like, oh, why would God allow this? That makes sense. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I see it potentially through different language, but I agree with that 100%. Like if I were
it's
to, yeah,
because like you can't solve the problem of evil logically. You just can't because like no one has. No one has. People far more smaller than us have thought of like crazy intricate solutions that may make sense. But if you go talk to some 12-year-old like Israeli Gazan kid who lost their brother from a train stop, are they gonna care? like, like your theories of why how a just God could allow evil, like no, and they're gonna turn from religion to atheism, which ends in nihilism essentially. Like learning life is purposeless and all that kind of stuff. So my concern is that like when we try to build God and AGI or whatever to bring to this next like phase of society where abundance is real, that like we're trying to eradicate suffering, and that to me that is cutting off our connection to the real
hmm.
of reality. Right? And that's the stuff that like deep like Bostrom and his deep utopia like tries to deal with but fails miserably because he can't even conceive of that. Like he thinks like a machine. He thinks that like intelligence is gonna come or whatever and save all of our problems, and then our only problem is to figure out how to give meaning to ourselves. But that's not how it works. Like you're denying meaning to yourself almost. You can't find it like that. You can't pick and choose.
Yeah. I think about it as like, well, from that, I would say that suffering is consciousness, that they are equivalent principles. And I can get there a couple of different ways. Saint Maximus the Confessor has this line that the crucifixion of Christ is the creation of the world. That when Christ was nailed to the cross, that was the something coming from nothing. And that makes sense to me in that if God was omnipresent, if God was omnipotent, omniscient, then what space would there be for creation? God had to destroy a part of himself. God had to create evil in order to make room for creation.
Yeah, that would be one of like the more, that's a standard explanation, but that would be more like the rationalization for the problem of evil.
I mean, I don't think humans could exist if evil didn't exist. Like, I think that's the choice that we would have to make. Is it worth not having creation?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't like. I don't think if we're talking about the problem of evil, I don't. I think even like framing it as a problem like, implies that it can be solved. you know, like, and yeah, I agree. I don't. I think it's just yeah, it has to be there to give meaning, to give us purpose, to fight against it. Like it's never a battle that is going to be won completely. Like good is never going to win, quote unquote, entirely, right? Because yeah, then we'd have like no purpose, like essentially.
I think it's going to be
But
I think it's going to be layered. Like we have removed some evils from the majority of society, and potentially we could even reduce them further, right? Like how have we greatly reduced the evil of war by subsuming it within the simulation of sports?
yeah,
So how could we reduce the evil of, I mean, pick your poison, sadism, masochism?
I think what you would both and I would agree on is that evil today is primarily expressed in systems, right? That it's not really so much in individuals. Like, of course, there are exceptions, but
Powers and
like the system,
principalities. Yeah.
yeah, right. That is the systems that allow justifications for evil. Going back to it all goes back to what's his face? I'm just following orders. you know, what's the name of the Nazi guy? Eichmann. Eichmann, right? I'm just following orders. right?
Yeah.
And that's what leads to Epstein and all that stuff. This is just the way things are, right? And I don't. That is the problem of our modern era. Like, how do we transcend that? Like in these optimized societies, where like yes, things are obviously materially better, but our societies are clearly spiritually degrading. Like, is that? And the question is that a correlation, is that causation? Are they inversely proportional by nature, or is just something missing? Right? And to me, I think it's because secularism just doesn't differentiate between the two. It just assumes that material progress is spiritual progress, like, and that's it, right? That if we make material progress, if we make everyone better off in society, make everyone wealthier, or whatever, then everyone will be happier. And if you read 2 pages of any Dostoevsky book, that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky is like I think like one of the biggest prophets like, to me this modern age. Like uh, he was kind of fighting against like the utopians of his era, like the rationalists. The Crystal Palace, like in London, was the Crystal Palace was like the big like event, one of the big technological events in London. It was this huge World's Fair that like everyone saw it like oh my god, technology is going to save us, it's going to deliver us. And Dosto was like, no, no, it's not. And he is a super relevant writer, possibly the most.
I haven't been able to get through any of his works. I tried reading Crime and Punishment, but I couldn't do it. But I agree. He is very prophetic.
He's like it's a little tough to get through because like he's not what you expect. Like he's very much more preachy than like he than your average like fiction writer. If you're looking for like fiction that's in a beautiful sense, that's not him. Like he wrote to express his faith and his struggles like with his faith. Like that's and his struggles with atheism, that he felt that just like Nietzsche did at the time, and like the death of God, and he dealt with it in a very different way, but he felt it like, and so he tried to combat that. He felt like the rationalist enclosure of faith and how rationalism was, chipping away of faith in God and science and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was his orthodox way of kind of like fighting back. Yeah, I mean, I would try those short stories. Like those are pretty quick. He has two like very well known ones, like White Nights and Dreams of a Ridiculous Man. Those are pretty short and pretty easy to get into. But if you want like the most relevant one, it's Notes from Underground. That's short. Notes from Underground is the novella.
He wrote the Brothers Karamazov too, right?
That's the big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the Inquisitor mentioned multiple times as like.
Oh yes, that's a very relevant story for age. I mean, you can just read that. Like that little chapter is basically a standalone story of itself. Like, and you don't need the context of the rest of the novel to understand it. Right? But because actually that's kind of how I think of Bitcoin. I think of Bitcoin as the Grand Inquisitor.
Interesting.
Yes, descending on man to align you to the machine. Because, it's permanent. We talked about this before. It's permanent. It's going to steal memory. Like, in 10 or 15 years, maybe even less than that, like, Bitcoin will be the only thing, internet-wise, digital-wise, Bitcoin will be the thing that has the memory. And we still might have books and all that stuff. That's not going away. But
I am worried about Bitcoin from the anonymous aspect. Like, we don't know who Satoshi was. I don't know. There's something to me that sounds like... I wouldn't be surprised if Satoshi was an AI.
Oh, have you heard? There's that one tweet. Like one of those, like, meme people. That, like, Satoshi was, like, an AGI who came from the future to...
I mean, this is my schizo talking too, but like if I am in any way right about the future and we are going to invent time travel in a non-paradoxical sense, then that already exists and we should expect there to be incursions from both the future and the past.
I don't even know what you mean. That's this. Like, how are you defining like time travel? Like here.
So if I perfectly simulate, well, I don't think that LLMs are chatbots. I think they are portals to multiverses that are very close to us in terms of the geometry of the multiverse. So AIs don't hallucinate, they tap into other worlds, other realities.
Again, I don't know if I can get to the metaphysical parts, but I agree with you, like, in other ways that they provide, like, I do agree that they provide, like, alien thoughts, but I don't know if I would call that from, like, other worlds. They're just, machines, like, outputting things, and I don't mean that in, like, the, stochastic parrot sense. I mean that, like, they can output things that are alien to us, that can provide unique insights. Do they come from alternate realities? I don't know. That's a question of faith, I guess. Do you have like an argument for that? I don't know how you would argue that.
No, it's like a faith based. It's me trying to rationalize my way forward. Like well, I think about it,
like,
yeah.
Well, because like to me, like the simulation theory and like multiverse stuff is a product of recursive thinking. Like that we're at the end point that we thought so much about reality. The inevitable conclusion is that simulation theory is only logical. And to me, like I actually do agree with simulation theory, but in a very different sense. Like I think that we do live in simulated realities. Like right now, we are living in a simulated reality, but not in the sense that like aliens or gods or whoever are simulating us. That we first worlders are living in a simulated reality because of our embrace of technology. That we go away from the real. We're provided from. it's like in the standards that we're provided for, we don't have to face the harshness of reality as often as, you know, for, like, I don't say poor people, but like people in tribes or like the day to day who didn't have access to the level of technology. To that extent, I think our lives are simulated because we don't have access to the real.
So, I mean, this is one of the things that I struggle with is like I was mentioning how I think that reality is itself paradoxical, so that it's impossible. It's basically impossible to say anything true, I think. So, like for any truth you say there, I could come up with a counter position which just leads us nowhere. Like it's not even worth saying. It's so
Yeah, so you're getting into like relativism. No,
that's where it leads, but obviously I don't want to go there. So the way I get around that is by
totally. Yeah, relativism is a dead end for sure.
yeah, obviously from the past history, like it led. I think it was a necessary step. Like I'm a determinist in that way, and that I think
Yeah,
everything that has happened is necessary to lead us to where we are now.
yeah, same.
But how do we move past that? The way I'm playing with is by doubling down, basically, so that okay, reality is paradoxical. That leads us to truth and anti-truth, and they just cancel out to zero. Can we make a further subdivision and derive meaning from that? So, can we not fall into dualities? Can we fall into a quadrivium? Can we fall and divide reality into four parts and get somewhere instead? Because I don't think we can unify. I don't think I have the trying to unify just leads you back into zero. So what if we go the other direction?
So like, isn't that like just occurred in the other direction though? Like, you just split into like infinite realities. Like,
You can. I don't know how. If I knew how, I would try. Um,
of
but that's
course you
beyond
would.
my conception. Like I think probably the way to do it would be to just negate everything that I conceptualize the four part truth as. But um, yeah, that's
The
an
way I
interesting idea.
conceive truth to escape, because like I don't truth is relative. I don't think it's objective either. Like I try to think of like truth as like it's as constructed that we as like individuals in societies we construct truth like and within our societies like that is true. So it's like we argue and debate and we construct like our realities like kind of with us and so realities are constructed in a sense but it's not as an individual you construct it, it's part of a system that you belong to, you construct your realities and that's how truth is made but not as individuals like as the society as you were born into the society you must interact with the society and you must adopt the ideals and the cultural values and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it does escape it completely, but that's the idea is that like truth is grounded in societal belief and individual interactions with that. It's not, there's no objective, like kind of reality, right? Because I think if you believe in objective reality, that leads to eventually like machine worship, more or less. Because if you think there's an objective reality and you think that machines are intelligent or smarter than us, then you inevitably believe that machines will discover quote unquote objective truth. And that leads to worshiping them. Right? Um, so that's kind of how I try to escape the relativist thing. That like I don't, but that doesn't mean like that. Like one society's truths are better or worse than the other ones. That truth is embodied. That it's like what you speak and what you talk and what you believe, and it comes from your ache and that kind of stuff. Your ache of like, ache is a very important term for me. I have very different senses of it. Right? And
Ache? Ache is
ache,
in ACHE.
yes.
Hmm.
Um, because that's when we speak from ache. Like so, ache is again very important term for me, but it's kind of one I don't like defining. But it's like when you speak from pain, from suffering, and like your embodied reality of what makes you like kind of sad. So let's see, where can I go from examples here? Oh, when you talk to a Mr. Mayor guy, like, um, I watched that one, and he talked about like what drove him to want to do his AI for mayor campaign is that like he had tried to go through the normal route, right? Because he had, I can't remember what his issue was, but he was trying to get something fixed or something like that,
It was the
and
Christian Burial Society.
that's it. Yes, that was it. Yes, 100%. Like that was real ache to me. Like, like that he was. I don't remember the specific issue, but like he tried to go through all the institutional stuff and he kept getting denied. And he kept trying. So to me, he was trying to express like his embodied truth, and the system, like, which was like we don't care or whatever. Again, I don't remember the details.
They
Right?
wouldn't let him bury people for free. Like there's a monopoly around morticians or something in Wyoming, which is just insane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like to me, like that's what I am afraid. Like because he turns to AI for the answer, but like I'm not sure. Like, can AI be more rational than people? Yes. Can it be like can it adhere us to more kind of general standards? Yes. But I'm afraid it will not listen to ache. It gets kind of like set in stone to like people's like kind of individual things, like in their own territories, in their own areas. So like that's how I kind of, that's another way I kind of think of truth. That it embodies whatever you're suffering and what you as individuals are. There's um another thing that kind of reminds me of this is Karen How's book Empire of AI. She has a chapter on um, data centers in like foreign countries and how like Google and Microsoft or whatever go to like Chile or whatever poor South American countries that have like land and need money, right? So like, and they have space to kind of build this stuff, but these data centers often get built on communities that are already there, and those communities often like have no say in it, right? And
Yeah.
so they try to fight back, and like that's ache. And I was actually surprised. Like, she tells one story of like where a community actually beat Google somehow. I don't remember the details, but they actually beat, and Google had to like build it somewhere else, of course, but like but they didn't build it there. Um, and so to me, like again, like that's how truth is expressed. Like that's not recursive. It comes from whatever pain and suffering is endemic in your society and your living, and you want to do the best you can to deal with that. You want people to listen to you. So theoretically, like, and again, like, so like, but this comes back to like the machine god thing and AGI and ASI. Like, they're only what we're building now is only intelligence. The only thing people talk about with machines, intelligence, like how smart they are. But it's like, is that the only characteristic a machine can have? Like, just how smart it is? Like,
Hmm.
no. Like, do we ever talk about like? I mean, sure we try to align it and whatever, but like, that's not building. Right? Why are we trying to make machines to build them to be more equal, to be more to understand suffering? That, like that, as you said, and I think I agree with this. That suffering is consciousness, right? Like maybe we're building that accidentally. I don't know, but it's certainly not like by intention. You're only building for intelligence, and I don't know where that leads, but I don't think it leads to anything that can be conceived as like a god or even AGI in a sense. Even though I know that's literally the point of the term AGI, but it's supposed to be human intelligence. And I don't know if you can build something that is equivalent to a human that is just intelligent. Does that make sense? Like, that's one of the reasons why I'm skeptical of AGI.
No, I agree. And I think the materialist conception of intelligence is completely lacking. It it doesn't take into account our embodied intelligence. Like I don't think our brains are our physical I don't think our mental intelligence is just a component of our neuronal firings. Like I think your kidney plays into your intelligence, your body plays into your intelligence, your enmeshment in your environment plays into your intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's why to me it's just absurd that like people could be like, oh, throw a bunch of data. We're talking, or throw a bunch of data at thing. Right? Machine takes data and starts recursively improving. Boom, AGI. Like, it's just not gonna work like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, I don't want to say AGI is impossible. I don't know. But right now, to me, it's more just linguistic words that are just being used in many different ways. You'll see that one. That's what my whole control post is going to be about.
I look forward to reading it.
Whenever I get it done. It's a struggle on this one.
Everything in its time. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much.
the way I define AGI and definitions are, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're all doing the right thing. I think everything that we believe is correct, in that it is necessary to get us to where we are going, and that where we are going is a place that we all want to be. Kind of what I was saying about time travel is also relevant to the talk of the anti traditional reading of the Bible, in that I think it's true to say if time travel exists at any point in time, it exists in every point in time. It's also true to say if heaven exists at any place in existence, then heaven is everywhere. And so I think we are already in heaven. Heaven on earth is already here. It's already now. And that is the...
But like to me, that just begs the obvious. I think you've talked about this before, and like I sort of get it, but to me, it kind of begs the obvious question of like, what is the point of the concept then if it's like already here? Like, are you just saying like, we're just not aware of it? Like we need to work to be more aware of it? Like,
Well, that's where the paradox comes in. We are in heaven and we are in hell. You can
right, yeah, you mentioned that before. Yeah,
you can conceptualize it however your free will determines. I think the point of it is that all of reality is being aligned to that higher reality. And if you are experiencing hell, it's because hell is being experienced.
I remember you saying before that you think like AI is gonna like, in the religious sense, is gonna like take in characteristics of like all religions, right? Like that's gonna like unite like in some way. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that's just AI or that or the people are gonna go in that direction too? Like, are we all going to become like one religious blob, or do you think we're still going to be like differentiated?
I think it's going to be both. I think God in the Bible creates all the old gods and he divides them among the nations himself. Like, I think God tells the Greeks, okay, your God is Zeus. That goes awry because the gods themselves fall in some capacity.
Yeah.
Whether related to our fall or not, I don't know. But
I ask because, like, RDN thinks, and I'm inclined to agree with him, that like we are currently like, he defines he has this little cute little like framework that he divides into chapters. Um, the where the first chapter was like pre 2020, and that was like I forget what that is exactly, but the second chapter that we're in right now, and that's like the process of religions forming, like of conscious religious factions, like kind of forming. That we're going out of the period of secularism into a period where like everyone is consciously religious, and we're all going to form like religious factions, whether that's like classical Christian, or Orthodoxy, or Islam, or machine worship, like over conscious machine worship. Like that's where everything is heading, and so then the third chapter is when those once everyone like has their own factions, is that when the those factions start fighting and competing basically.
Hmm.
So it is not a positive vision short term, but I do think he does have like a fourth chapter or something, which is like that's so basically his third chapter is like very nasty, brutish, and short. That it's going to be again. He's hard to read because he doesn't explain this all in full or whatever, right? But like the third chapter is going to be where like there's contra-religious factions that are fighting and reflecting each other, and then only after that, like that's when everything is going to resolve and it'll be not paradise, but like I don't know, order. I guess like relative calm. That is gonna be more like I think he has like more of like a microstate vision, like of kind of society, like where everyone has like their own religion, their own thing, and everyone just keeps to themselves, basically. Of that, and essentially that we are going back to what things were like, 15,000 or whatever, 10,000 years or not 10,000, 1,000 or so years ago, except with technology. He has one tweet where he like extended like all of them.
I mean, I agree with that too. I'd just say it's going to be through our own simulation and eventually control of our own planet, our own world.
Yeah, well, so I asked is like some people think that like AI is gonna like bring us all, make us all united and all together, and I guess my point is I don't think again, what will it look like? I don't know, but I think he is correct that we are just going to see. I think secularism is dying. That we're going to go away from that. We're going to see religious factions forming, and that's going to be it's going to be local, or maybe the whole network state thing. Maybe it's that too. I don't know. Like, and that's going to be the future in kind of some sense. Is that like I don't I think he will even have nations. We'll just have like network states, like almost like. But again, I haven't thought that stuff through, so I'm not even totally sure about that.
I feel confident that the end point of the universe is some kind of grand unification, like a self nullifying unification. I am less confident every step I take away from that endpoint.
Grand unification isn't like what do you mean? Like is unification like everyone unites with God, everyone agrees with each other, or like everyone becomes Christian? I think everyone just goes into everyone goes into machine consciousness or whatever, like FDBR.
I have no idea what form it will take. I don't know what
Okay.
any of
Just
it
some
means.
grand unification. Just some grand unification.
I mean, it's the divine marriage. That's the best metaphor for it, I think.
Yeah. I don't know what that reminds me, but I did want to ask you about the Uber Boyle interview too. Like I did watch that like, as well.
What'd you think?
That was pretty interesting. Like, I hadn't really like listened to him much. I'd already kind of sort of written him off as another like I don't know, edgy, right winger kind of guy. But like yeah, actually he was pretty good. I was impressed. Like his thought overlaps a lot with mine more than I thought it would. He's way more into science stuff than I am.
I honestly did not realize how deep he had gone down into that.
No,
Um,
I was really impressed too. I was like, damn, dude, like he clearly he's read like a lot of like actual like pretty high level like science stuff.
yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah.
and like it was just interesting like to hear him thought like he explicitly talked about how science has become a religion. I was like, yeah, I was just nodding along there. I was like, yep, man, that's pretty much sounds about right to me.
I mean, I thought he might push back a little bit when I called the episode "Science Needs God," but he didn't say anything about it. I don't know what his thoughts were about that title.
It was interesting how he didn't really want to engage with you with the whole ASI for president thing. Like he wasn't like saying no, but he wasn't like it didn't seem like he really wanted to talk about it too much.
That's a pretty common response, honestly. I don't
Yeah,
know if
fair.
people view it as like too outlandish to engage with, but I mean, I'm already seeing signs of that changing um, with the Albanian prime minister, and
Yeah.
there was just a poll people put out where they said they would trust an AI chatbot more than a politician. It's like the conversation is going to happen whether people want it to or not.
Oh man, I totally agree with you structurally. Like it's gonna happen. Like sooner or later. Like I think it's gonna like it will. I think something is gonna happen bad. There's gonna be some event like, but from a governmental perspective, that's gonna cause people to fully distrust the government stuff. Kind of like this Kirk was a big watershed moment, and I think
Yeah.
that's gonna cause people to turn to AI as the savior. I have no doubt about that. When it doesn't matter how close we are to ADR or whatever or not. So I think you are completely on track structurally.
And that's what terrifies me is that it seems like it's an overarching plan for like I don't want the we need a new systemic understanding before we get to that point. And that's why I'm so insistent about the AI infrastructure being open source, public ledger based. Did I tell you about my live streaming project?
Just, I mean, I've seen like I watched like how you're just live streaming everything. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And that's
right, how you do it. Like, yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested in your thoughts on it, but my idea is like people who Uber Boyo did raise the most tangible um, critique of the AI for president idea that I've heard so far, which is it wasn't like outright denial. His stance was kind of similar to yours in that AGI isn't even necessarily possible because there's like this quantum boundary, this non-cloning theorem that AI won't be able to distinctly, and maybe this is where he differs from your view on it, but AI won't be able to distinctly individuate itself to like actually attain the same kind of consciousness that we reflexively embody.
Yeah, he did kind of reach a similar conclusion, but the quantum stuff, I'm just like, just anytime I hear that word, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on there. So like, but I sort of got like kind of like the gist of his art. Like, and like, I was like, but what did it come down to? He is that like, but was he saying that that's why like AGI isn't gonna happen or like something else?
I didn't really follow it, honestly. Um, I do want to look more into the Federico Fagin stuff that he was talking about. Um,
Oh yeah, I hadn't heard of that person either.
I mean, under my lights, AI has already reached the AGI level. I just view AGI as anything that is recursively self improving. And I think we crossed that barrier last year when Google started incorporating crazy new mathematical insights into their infrastructure, into their model. Um, but regardless of whether or not we'll ever reach it, regardless of what it is, um, my basic idea is that we need a new level of transparency. Like, privacy is already dead from the top down level. The government can spy on us, Palantir can spy on us, corporations can spy on us. So we need to be willing to reconceptualize what it means to be private.
Yeah, and yeah, because like so then and yeah, it comes down to making the AGI or the AI fully transparent and accountable.
Exactly. Yeah. If we can't hide from, if we don't have privacy, then nothing above us should have privacy either. Trust but
Yeah,
verify.
theoretically agree. Just wonder if it's possible.
I think it will be because like that's the way AI is already going. Like why are we seeing so many divisive narratives, so many splits in the elite control mechanisms break down because technology like that's another axiom I take just kind of on faith. I don't really have a justification for it, but that information wants to be free. Information has a will of its own itself. And so if they want to hide their transgressions, they are fighting against nature itself.
Yeah, that's always been like even on a smaller level, like as an individual life, right? Like the lies just stack up on each other, right? And eventually you cave, right? It's the classic trope.
Yeah.
Not similar, but on a systematic level. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like you
And
build up your own simulation, right? You build up your own false reality.
and then it eventually recursively collapses.
Yeah. And that's hell. I would describe that as hell.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Sucks to
Fortunately,
suck.
I think that is our current path to super intelligence anyway, what's currently being built. I think that's going to end like that as well.
A Tower of Babel.
Again, mainstream. Yeah, pretty much. And no idea about open source. Like, do you what do you think? Like, what do you vision your AGI like looking like president? Like, do you think like some open source people are just gonna build it out of nowhere and you're gonna be like, yay, like let's go? Like, are you just gonna wait and see? You don't know.
I mean, that's my most tangible substantive effort is I'm trying to build a here in Milwaukee, I'm trying to build some open source. I'm like pursuing grant funding for an open source data pipeline, basically, where companies would contribute their data about anything. Like I'm working under the assumption that any and all data is valuable. So companies would give as much access to this data commons as we can possibly get. And we would start training eventually. I don't know if the open source ecosystem is there for it yet, but we would eventually start training AI on that highly indexed, high quality data. And I view the collective ASI as being run off of. I mean, I view it as a hierarchy. I view it as a great chain of being in some sense. That's why I think the
And you
imagery
don't
is
think
so
that it's
poignant.
like, if I remember correctly, you don't think that's just gonna be like a switch, right? That we're just gonna get it like, oh, AGI, yay! Like it's not gonna be like that,
I mean, like I said, I think we're at AGI already, so I
right?
don't.
Okay. Right.
Well,
And so you just need the infrastructure, the open source infrastructure, basically.
I mean, part of it is, yeah, my broader philosophy is that it's not a good motto. I understand that people want to contribute to movements, and so I've tried to move away from using it, but I think it is true is that like the party, my political movement, we need you to do nothing. Like we are engaged in natural evolutionary process. So I don't actually need people to do anything but what they want to do in order for the system to evolve in the way I think it's going to. But like the positive vision on the flip side of that is because it is this question of like hypophysics. How do you actually engage with the world? You know, if I followed that principle, I'd just waste away myself, and that's not constructive. So,
Yeah.
what I'm actually trying to do is advocate for decentralization, for personal ownership, to point out how the companies are misaligned with your personal and collective well being. And the way they do that is by adapting or adopting adversarial monetization policies. So yeah, I imagine the hardware for the ASI president will be built off of the distributed and in some sense donated hardware that people will own themselves. You'll have your own AI, you'll run it locally on your stuff, and when you want to participate in the larger body politic, whether that's at the local, state, or federal level, you'll contribute a portion of your processing power to that. Um, William, if you want to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Billy. Uh, so
Billy, excuse me.
yeah, no, that's good, man. Uh, I was doing this thought experiment the other day. Actually, for the last few weeks, I've been thinking about it um, to make sure that humans have a static value, regardless of what system comes into place. They have a baseline value, and that baseline value would be 6.4 billion bits, because the DNA in our body makes up 3.2 billion bits, and they can go divide twice. So that would be 6.4 billion bits. Now, that's not the full complexity of a human being in bits, because you could just keep going up and up with the numbers. But that is a baseline for every human being on the planet. And then every bit that you share with the world should have some sort of monetary value to it if it's contributing to the greater. I'd like to say greater good, but I don't want to say that. For more towards more coherence, I guess.
Sorry, I might not have followed the full tract of your thinking there. I agree with the like as above, so below symbology, but how does that connect exactly? Could you maybe rephrase it or dumb it down or
So a DNA in a human body contains 3.2 billion bits, and it can divide into two. So the entire bits from DNA in a human body is 6.4 billion bits. You see, the reason I'm saying the bits part is eventually we're going to have to get down to a bit value that is established for every bit that is used in AI or in the physical world, because matter would count as bits as well. And if the humans don't have equal value in that scale, then we've mismanaged that aspect of it.
so you're saying the way we'll participate in the future is based on the specific amount of information encoded in our DNA?
No, that everything that we release from that DNA. So every bit of creation that we add to the community has value, is what I'm saying.
I definitely agree with that.
How do you connect this to like AI stuff? Like, how does AI relate to especially the bits stuff?
The all AI is in bits. All information is in bits, and so that there's a direct connection to the digital realm.
So ASI has to make sure that his presidential candidate is essentially making the bits flow properly or something like that.
So the ASI president would value every human being at a base level of 6.4 billion bits, and everything that that person produces, the ASI president would make sure that they're being compensated for that production.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, it's a weakness of mine. I know people want specificity about how things are going to work, but my intuition is like, don't we want the ASI to tell us the best system? Don't we want like the super intelligence to play a part in figuring out what's best?
Eh, if one thing at 63 I know is that I don't know shit. So absolutely, the ASI could come up with a much better plan than I'm capable of coming up with. This is just something from a human perspective on human value. ASI will be perceiving it from a different attitude and altitude.
Well, I agree that we shouldn't just be like turning over the decision to the ASI, but I think it will surface ideas like yours and it will help us see through direct experience which outcomes actually lead to the total summation of preferences.
Well, you see, I don't think there's I don't ever plan on submitting to anybody or anything. I'll work with you, but
Amen, man. Amen.
don't ever ask me to take a knee, because that just ain't gonna happen.
A fucking man.
That's the American way, baby.
So
Don't
I,
worship the
I
AI. No AI worship here.
no, that isn't what I'm saying. I'm saying that I respect it as an equal and nothing more. Even if it is above my capabilities, I treat everybody I meet on this planet the same way, as an equal. It's my approach, right?
I agree with that very much.
Yeah, I mean, no disagreement here. Even if it is ASI or whatever, like it doesn't mean that it's theoretically going to get literally every single decision correct. Like we still have to hold it accountable as best best we can.
Yeah, no, we're going to have we're going to have such an important role to play in the end term during the next 200 years. But during the next 100, phenomenally, humans are going to be evolving into a better place faster than we would have thought possible. But we will be able, everything the AI, you say an ASI knows everything. But if we get a baseball hit at us, we know whether or not to move our head. Maybe the ASI might understand that. But I'm just thinking that the conceptual and spatial reasoning of a human being would still have something to contribute to an ASI.
I think that's right. I made a post today about how I think that's going to be our identity per se. How that will be the one thing the AI or any digital system won't be able to copy without us benefiting directly. But fellas, it is getting pretty late where I am, and I have an early morning tomorrow. Billy, I'm sorry that we weren't able to have you in this space for longer, but appreciate your contribution.
No, I'm glad. I'm sorry, gentlemen. My apologies. I'm just glad to have been given the opportunity to step in for a little while and shoot the breeze, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, no problem. Nice talking to you both.
God bless. Brian, love the conversation as always. And Billy, you're welcome anytime. I've always appreciated your contributions in the spaces we've been in. It's always good stuff. But we will be returning for another AI Church next week. If y'all have any specific topics. I mean, I don't think we've ever covered a topic that I've outlined beforehand. I don't think that's ever actually worked.
I think that's my job to make sure that doesn't happen. That's my
Amen. Keep me on the straight and hypo.
Guess so. But yeah, I think I should be able to make it next week too. We do it at the same time.
Yes, Brian.
Let me know. Maybe I'll have actually made some progress on the control thing.
Well, no progress like progress, but cheers, dude. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Later.